Hello, darling, and welcome back to day 9 of my Valentine's Day makeover series. We are far past the halfway point. We are far past the halfway point, and in today's video, we're going to be giving the very probably unknown Clara Bjergsen a makeover. I definitely butchered her surname, so I'll be sticking to her name, her first name, Clara. So if you don't know, Clara is from the Get Together expansion pack. The best expansion pack. You can fight me on that. She lives on the island with her husband and her daughter and her son. No, she's got 2 daughters, sorry. The one is a teenager and the other one is a child. So she lives in a house. They're quite well off, she and her husband, and as per, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, giving Lilith Valtor, I think her name is, a makeover, and 2 days ago giving Lily Fang a makeover. Any sim that's not base game has 0 lore around them. Like, after I gave Clara a makeover, I went back into map view and I happened to see her family's short description, and it basically only focuses on her teenage daughter being ambitious and wanting to become a music star. And they just briefly mention the fact that her husband is gloomy, that she's a perfectionist, and that her, I don't even know if they mentioned the little sister in the biography for the family, but that's just so little. When I read the description after I gave Clara and her husband this massive, very detailed, intense backstory, which I love. I feel like one day I should just make a video of just giving every character a backstory, a creative backstory, because here's how I started. So I started with this makeover wanting to go very what you would expect of me, very, I don't want to say European and be offensive, but European, kind of the skirt, the shirt, and some basic heels, very, very free, very what she actually wears in her everyday look. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the skirt. Couldn't find a skirt that I liked, that had a good color. I couldn't find a top that looked nice. And then I eventually stumbled upon a shorter looking, I think it should be any minute now, a shorter skirt that almost looked Chanel-esque. And then I was like, oh yeah, she's rich. And if you look at her legs, she looks gorgeous for her age. So, oh, come on now. I'm talking about you when you don't want to show up. Here it is. So this at this point, I realized she's rich, she's gorgeous. We should put her in a shorter skirt, something maybe a bit more edgy. But then I got back to the pencil skirts, a tighter fit skirt, and it just looked businessy. And this looked stupid on her. She is maybe hitting her middle 40s, late 50s. Well, no, not late 50s, middle 40s, late 40s, early 50s, or 50. She's not gonna be wearing a corset and a short skirt. But then I just somehow, I don't know, I can't even remember what made me just throw a complete 180. But I ended up thinking, she and her husband, they're not going to some fancy restaurant in Windenburg, because there aren't no fancy restaurants in Windenburg. She and her husband are going to the backyard and they're going to have a picnic. And then my mind just took this little tidbit of information and it ran. It Usain bolted to the next universe. So here's the backstory. Sit back, grab some popcorn, because this backstory is good. She and her husband both come from wealthy families. Her husband's family is a bit wealthier though, and a bit more well-known. So the hairstyle I end up giving her is very, kind of want to say 80s, kind of want to say a bit of 70s. And that is the time her and her husband started dating. So her husband, I feel like she and her husband would have like a milestone. I think this year they may have been married for like 20 years, and so they decided to be cute and recreate their first date. And for their first date, her husband took her on a picnic. So that is, and I decided she, no lie, still has the clothes she wore on their first date. She's sentimental like that. So she wore exactly what she wore on their first date again for their 20th anniversary date. And I just feel like that was so pretty. So she and her husband both come from families, they married, and that's kind of where I was getting the story of like, so that jersey she wore on the first date, the pants, the boots that I eventually gave her, and the hair just made everything come full circle because it just feels so 70s, 80s. It's kind of big, not this look. This one. I eventually settled for this one, and I just feel like that big curl just makes it look so... I can't exactly remember what timepieces it reminds me of. I feel like when I say this, it gives me very 80s vibes, and it kind of also gives me late 70s vibes. So, I don't know what to say. In a minute's time, I'm going to give her earrings. And I love those earrings because I eventually decided those butterflies is kind of their thing. I feel like maybe she was going through a bad time right before she met her husband, and her mother gave her these earrings because she may have wanted to go study... I don't know what you call people who study butterflies. I'm sorry. That's not my field of expertise. So she wanted to go study butterflies, and so she loves butterflies. So her mom gave her these earrings for her first date, and eventually their wedding also was very butterflies. I'm sorry. When I'm thinking of the backstory, I jump around a lot, and you can see this now. I'm jumping around a lot because I'm telling you what I was thinking when I was filming this, because I literally filmed this like 4 or 5 days ago. I filmed this 2 days ago. So, and like this, the mom giving her these butterfly earrings was just also a like precursor to how this relationship with her husband really not necessarily saved her, but it transformed her to a better person. And I also feel like he loved the little butterfly earrings she had on, because I feel like when they started, she was naive. She was a young, naive... I also want to put out there that I think there's an age gap. I'm sorry. When I thought that, I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, even just saying she was 16 and he was 20, that's still weird. But you know what? When I was thinking of getting the age gap, I was also thinking of that one scene from The Crown, the series The Crown, of Princess Diana and her husband, and she was like, I don't watch The Crown. I saw this in a trailer. So she is in a tutu, and she was dancing somewhere in the royal... No, she was definitely in a tutu, because I think she was embarrassed about the fact that he had caught her dancing, and she was kind of hiding behind this pillar, and like they were leaning out and he was leaning out, but she just looked so childish next to him. Like, not childish, but like she looked like a child. And that's kind of also where I wanted their relationship to kind of hit off. Like, yes, she was younger, she was in a much different time in her life, but her husband still, when they met, and the relationship and the bond they developed transformed her like that of a butterfly. If I make any sense, or if you understand what I'm saying, thank you. I don't feel many people understand what I'm saying. So we are getting close to the end of the video. I hated those white shoes. I hated them with every being of my life. I hated those white shoes. So I did end up giving her boots, and I do love the boots I ended up giving her. I couldn't find trainers, tackies, whatever you want to call them, sneakers. I couldn't find a pair that I liked. So this is just me panning so you can see the full view, 360. I couldn't find a pair of tackies I liked, so I do like the fact that I ended up with boots. I also didn't put on a ring for her, mostly because it clashed with her lashes, but also like she wasn't wearing an engagement or a wedding ring on their first date. This is literally her, maybe with a few extra wrinkles, 20 years ago. but I loved it. And I also think it may have made her cry that night, doing before the date, the 20th anniversary date, because I do think her mother may have helped her the night of her first date. And obviously by now her mother has sadly passed away, not necessarily of age, maybe of like a disease or something, or like a cancer. So I also think the before her 20th anniversary date, she cried a bit because she was missing her mother. And 20 years ago, her mother was there, like helping her with the makeup, helping her with the styling. And you see, this is what I want from Sims. I want a backstory. I want lore. But with all of this said, I have linked everything in the description box below. The rest of the videos in this series is also linked in the description box below. But for now, from me to you, until tomorrow when I post someone else's makeover, goodbye, my darling.